Can everybody hear me all right? The folks that I can see, shake your head if you can hear me all right. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here to help kick this discussion off today. And, anytime somebody's going to make shift happen, I want to be part of making shift happen, all right? And I can't thank Jennifer for being our guest here for this discussion today. And I can't thank Edie enough. Edie Stringfellow for the amazing work that she has been doing here at MassBio and for our industry. So I'm going to start by clapping for you, Edie, because it has been such a busy time. And you've been logging the hours and you've been doing amazing work. And not just all of us on this Zoom call right now appreciate it, but all of us in our industry appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that, when you look at ED&I, and we've had a lot of talk recently about inclusion and diversity and systemic racism, well, it's given us an opportunity to think about our industry, right? The reason I love this industry is because we heal people. We fix people that are sick. We stop things that are sick. We stop things that cause people to be sick. And I'm telling you, as an industry, we know that racism is a disease, and our industry should seek to cure that like any other disease. So how do you do it? We do it by leading by example. We do it by changing how we do things. When we started our ED&I strategy here at MassBio a few years ago, the first thing that we realized we needed to do was to hire a director of diversity, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And I have learned more in the last couple of years about ERGs and all the different groups that we're involved with here now at MassBio. And I'll tell you, I want to say that anytime we do something without bio, it's the most fun. Don't tell all the other ERGs that, but it is, okay? So, by this, the strategy that we've embarked on here to really get people from all walks of life to be part of our industry, think about why that's so important. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the best thing to do for sick people. For the last 18 years, I've been involved with this industry because I have a child that has an illness that didn't have a therapy for him. And now we do. And it happened because of the amazing men and women that work in this industry, the amazing people that work in this industry. And I just think that the better we get at doing what Edie's doing and doing what we're all doing and really taking responsibility as an industry to change how we do things so that everybody can show up to work and be their true self, right? That's when you get the best out of people. And what we do is really, really, really hard. How are we going to be successful if we don't get the best true self out of everybody who are our co-workers? So you guys are going to talk about it during this conversation. Jennifer, we can't thank you enough for showing us the way. Edie, I'm so thankful every day that you have come into our life here at MassBio, because I learn every day how to be a better person and how we can be a better industry. And I think that's awesome. To the folks that aren't directly part of the MassBio family that have dialed in today and joined us, all are welcome. We're excited. There's folks from other trade associations, other parts, other regions of our country. Welcome. And if there's any way that we can be helpful with our leadership here, we want to help everybody do that. I just want to say I love all you guys. I can't thank you enough for everything that you do each and every day. Always be your true self, and we appreciate it, because what makes you so beautiful is your true self. Edie, I'm going to hand it back to you. And again, I can't thank you enough, my friend. You continue to show us the way.
I can't. I'm about to blush. I'm about to cry, about to smile. I'm about to be happy because, first of all, thank you to everyone for being here today, because you can be anywhere else in the world, but you choose to be with us. Thank you for demonstrating your advocacy as well as your allyship by being here today. And also, I would like to thank our sponsors and our partners. If it wasn't for our sponsors and partners, this program would not be possible. And Make Shift Happen is powered during the month of June, Pride Month, by PTC Therapeutics. I love working with them. They are a great partner. They're doing awesome work in regards to internships, throughout the year, bachelor's, master's, MDs, PhDs, Juris Doctorate. They're doing it all. They're doing so much lifting right now. I applaud them and I continue to learn from them. And also, just want to go over the ground rules with you. For the first 20 minutes, we're going to mute the audio and video, but please feel free to jump in at any time, chime in, send us a question through chat. We welcome them. So the first 20 minutes is going to be a Q&A between me and Jennifer. And then the following 20 minutes, we're definitely going to open up to everyone for audio and video. So you can ask your questions at will. And if many of you were together last year, we were at OutBio, and we would have never predicted the tumultuous world events that would impact all of our communities as they are right now. Pride Month is a way of bringing people together each June to honor the work that has been done over the last several decades and continues now to raise awareness and advocate for and protect LGBTQ rights. This year, LGBTQ Pride Month has never been more meaningful. June 20th marks the 50th anniversary of the annual Pride traditions. We had a landmark Supreme Court ruling that states that the 1964 Civil Rights Act protects gay, lesbian, transgender employees from discrimination. We are seeing organizations coming together, making bold commitments to this community and in inclusion. And over the years, we have seen increasing numbers of LGBTQ biopharma executives reaching the highest levels of leadership while being out, as well as strengthening inclusion policies and efforts in their own organizations. With that being said, and speaking of leadership, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Jennifer Hutter, Chief Scientific Officer at Arrakis Therapeutics. I cannot say enough about Jennifer, if I may call you Jennifer. And I just am an admirer of yours, of the work you've done, pioneering in biotech, everything you've done, the teaching that you did. I'm just going to stop right now, and I'm just going to ask you if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of information about your background, your role, and also if you can take us through your personal journey to the level that you feel comfortable with.
Sure. Of course, at my age, the journey's long, so I'll need to compress it a little bit. Thank you for your very kind introduction. So let me sort of try to paint the two sort of, personal and professional journeys and see how they've converged finally. Personally, as a kid, we moved around a lot. My local cred is that I graduated from Newton North High School a gazillion years ago. And then went to Dartmouth and the Duke and then Columbia University, where I studied organic chemistry. I was in the faculty at Pitt for a while. And then that didn't work out, which turns out to be brilliant. So I went to Sandoz, which we now know as Novartis. And then I went to Biogen and had a lot of fun there. And then leading small molecule drug discovery early in the days there. And then Mersana Therapeutics for a while, and then Avila Therapeutics, making covalent drugs. And then we got bought by Celgene, so I was VP of chemistry at Celgene for a while. And then it just seemed I was traveling around for a great job, but there might be a great job or two here in the Boston area. So I decided to depart Celgene and look for something new here. And frankly, fully expected to work at a company that already existed, but in fact, stumbled upon this sort of discontinuity that academics were working on RNA and small molecules, but that industrially this wasn't being pursued very aggressively. And so I wanted to sort of insert myself into that whole process. And so we established Arrakis Therapeutics in 2015, and we've had a good run of it since then with good funding and good partners. But more personally, let's just be clear that I was 100% closeted, and there
Mm-hmm.
was no exposing myself and my needs and my dreams to, at that level at least, to pretty much anyone. This turned out to be somewhat achieved by not really understanding myself and what it is that I needed and wanted. Never mind whether anyone else would appreciate that. And so that was a very, very long journey. I would say that that if there's a moment where I think maybe that jogged me into really think about myself, is that my wife, Kathy, had a little bout with triple negative breast cancer.
Okay.
That turned out just brilliantly. I mean, other than not having it would be more brilliant, but she's wonderful and well. And
I'm so glad to hear that.
it's better living through chemistry. But I think it gives you pause to be next to that and learn something about what the reckoning that she had to go through and the reckoning that this brings upon you. And it affected me very deeply. And so, there are ways in which I began to really sort of seriously examine who I was and why I'd made certain choices and continued to make those choices. And this culminated in a decision in 2016 to begin the process of transitioning. So I went to our friends at Fenway Health. They're at 1340 Boylston Street. I got myself a prescription for HRT and went into, and then took that home and put it in my bureau for a few months. And then in December of 2016, started on the HRT, which was a wild and exciting and profound and frequently hilarious journey in and of itself. But I began to explain what was about to happen to people at work, specifically Heather Lounsbury, our head of HR at the time, and then Mike Gilman, who is the CEO. This would have been March of 2018. I need to get my timing right. So, and what I found was that, so here my sort of personal reality and my professional reality were beginning to come together. And there was a lot of reason to have a lot of anxiety about that. But in fact, everyone was very supportive. Some people were very warm and supportive. Some people were supportive by expressing complete indifference, which I actually appreciated. And it's like, yeah, really, we took all this time to go to lunch for you to tell me that?
I know. I remember when we first connected, I loved the dogs. I was like, you have border collies?
I have a dozen or so Lassie collies, so that's fun. So anyway, this process culminated in explaining this to Mike Gilman, the CEO, then the board, and then ultimately coming out to everybody in May of 2018, and then going full time as Jennifer in June of 2018. And it's been fairly smooth sailing since then. It, for the most part, the usual sort of struggles with pronouns and the like. But I have to say, in a lot of ways, I think I've had kind of the gold-plated, silk-lined experience of this. And I know people have had so many challenges as they transition. And I've had plenty of challenges, but I have been, let's put it this way, I think I've been spared the gratuitous challenges that so many people have had to struggle with. And that's been really a blessing.
Can I ask?
So with that, please.
No, because I just want to pause you for 1 second. And for one of the reasons why we're here today, what did that support mean to you? And how do we replicate that in some of our organizations and throughout the industry because obviously having that support, having that inclusive culture in those surroundings, and having Mike Gilman at running things and being supportive, how can we translate that?
So, so Mike, had his own process, and part of this was to sit down and compose actually a document in which sort of laid out, Arrakis's approach to, me specifically, and then by implication to LGBTQ employees. And intriguingly, our attorney said that this document was not necessary, since many of the laws in Massachusetts thankfully cover most of it. But I actually found it to be very reassuring to have Mike as the head of Arrakis, to sit down and sort of lay out what are the company's commitments and beliefs, and how it is that he wanted the employees to conduct themselves. And so even though legally it turned out to be unnecessary, I think for me it was actually fairly reassuring.
Okay, and for you, that being reassuring, let's talk about inclusive culture, psychologically safety. Why is it so important for people to show up as them true selves at work and feel as if they can be them true selves at work, especially when we're talking about drug discovery and research and development in the medical science?
Well, there are my answers to that are not, I think, particularly well developed, but I have a few thoughts. One is that, as was alluded to earlier, it's a very demanding pathway. It really requires you put your heart and soul into what we do. And I think that if you're spending a lot of effort and energy and angst, keeping your heart and soul away, it makes it harder to be everything you could be, just professionally, never mind to the rest of the world. And I would say that for how your organization is also going to respond to the relative level of authenticity that you bring to work. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. And I have discovered that, sometimes I'm surprised at the source of the impact that I have. It always surprises me. But I think that if you show up as who you are, it makes it easier for other people to show up as who you are, even for other people to join your company who might have been otherwise hesitant. And then finally, I think that until you show up in that way, I was in a very privileged class of people, and I don't think it helped me understand other people very well to be not myself, but to walk away from that privileged class, at least part of it, because it was a big growth for me, and it helps me understand other people and what their issues are, what their struggles.
Yeah, it seems like if we spend more time conforming, we spend less time performing. So that's one thing we can get out of this. And then also, it's going to be, we have a couple of people that want to ask some questions. So we're going to get that set up. And please, everyone, open up your video and your audio, make yourself known, do some snaps, wave so we can see that you're the one asking the questions. And then we're going to line the questions up in order. So while Zach, who is doing a wonderful, tremendous job with all the aspects of making sure everyone is heard during the program, and we're getting everyone lined up and together, let's talk about how we can create safe spaces. And then for people that's part of the LGBT community, as well as allies, be more outspoken in support. especially for the next generation, serving as role models?
Is that a question you wanted me to respond to directly?
And just the points, how can we as a community get together? We're stronger together because not one of us is stronger than all of us. So what can be a takeaway from today where allies and people in the LGBT community can work together for the next generation, for the millennials, for Generation Zoomers, and after them?
So I on the one hand, I think that on the leadership side, it's important for that company and that leadership to be seen as being supportive, right? So I think it's a matter of this is another example of justice is good, but it's not sufficient. That you actually need to be seen having justice served.
Okay.
And so I think that sometimes the outward flourishes of commitment to LGBTQ population by the part of a company can seem a little superficial at first, but
okay,
it is a way for that company to be more inviting. So I think from that perspective, we can really help each other. And I think that ultimately, it's only by it's only by us coming out of the closet isn't just about the wider world knowing what your truth is, but it's also about other people. There's a community of LGBTQ people and being known to them. And that's been a really great, I think, unanticipated boon for me in this process.
Okay, well, let's open it up to questions. Let's see who wants to start off. Rachel, did you have a question for us?
I do. I was actually curious. Thank you so much, by the way. I'm from the PTC team, so we really appreciate your talking with us today. I was curious if you had any specific advice you could give someone in a similar situation who maybe was considering moving ahead and going the path that you have forged. Do you have any advice or words of wisdom or comfort?
Advice and words of wisdom. I'll see what I can do. First of all, please say hi to Marla for me at PTC. But yeah, I'm hesitant to generalize for what people should do. What I can tell you that I did that helped me was I tried to be pretty organized about this. It's a very complicated process. And I mean, I kid you not, I took Excel and made little Gantt charts about all the different things I needed to do. And, you know, some of them were very mundane, like what's the process for getting your name changed and all these very important documents. And some of them were actually things that were there on the Gantt chart, things that were profoundly emotional, like when we were going to talk to my kids, and when you're going to come out to certain individuals that are very key to this whole process. And but it sort of takes something which is so huge and can overwhelm you and kind of reduce it down to, okay, today I'm going to do this, and we're going to make progress. And the rest of it, though, I mean, maybe, I don't know, 100 little things that I could probably say, but they wouldn't be very connected. So
That's wonderful, though. I don't think I've heard anyone suggest being organized about it, but you're right. It is a life-changing event. So there are a lot of details to take care of.
Yeah, and I would say that, to be fair, you know, people who are transitioning in their 20s and 30s, let's face it, they have a lot more time. When you're starting to transition at 60, you're like, we gotta get moving here, you know.
There are several people that are coming off of mute, and we're all interacting at the same time, and they're loading up the questions, and we're going to take them in order. Ramsey, if you want to, let's see if we have Ramsey clear. Ramsey, can you go ahead?
I'll show my face for my question.
Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? It's good to see you again.
Fine, thank you.
So my question is more about sort of what you've noticed at Arrakis about sort of your ability to recruit talent and your ability to retain talent sort of through this process of you being so visible and living your sort of authentic self. I mean, what has that done to Arrakis's ability to bring in a more diverse sort of pipeline of talent? And have you noticed a big effect there?
Well, I don't know about a big effect. And there are people whom we know who have shared with us that the publicity of my transition impacted their perspective on the company and what kind of company culture we had and what it is they expected to find when they got there. And that has been really quite positive. I know there's one person in our company, I don't know that he necessarily wants me to use his name, so I'll pass on that, but he was quite clear. He said he'd been in a postdoc for a while and he wasn't sure that he saw a corporate culture as being appropriate to him and as a gay guy. And so but when he heard about us, he thought, that's the company, I could work there. So he works for us now and he's wonderful. And so to the extent that there are stories like that maybe we haven't heard about yet, I think that's positive. But we're a small company, so it can take a while to see the impact of that.
I have a couple of questions in the queue. George, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, Dr. Petter, my name is George Orrick. I'm from Bio. Question, with your background in the science and the academia sectors, did you feel that was, they were more, I guess, progressive, for lack of a better term, in supporting your transition and your journey?
Well, when I was an academic, there was no prospect of transitioning at that time. So I can't say that I had the opportunity to test it. So it's hard for me to answer that question. I would say that, yes, I think that the biotech universe, as we currently are, our understanding of who we are, how we see ourselves, everyone who works in the industry that I have encountered gives the impression that they want to be the most woke person in the room. And whether they are or not, it creates, frankly, a bit of a bubble. I was worried. So shortly after transitioning, I had to go out and start as part of the team to pitch to VCs for our B round. And I was frankly worried about that. But I can tell you, not only didn't anybody say anything, no one batted an eyelash. And I think it's that on the whole, we have a biotech culture which is, at least when confronted with the opportunity, will behave in the best possible way. So
Thank you.
I'm not saying we can't find ways to be bad. I'm just saying, so far, my experience of it has been very positive.
No, not our industry.
Thank
I
you.
do have a question in the queue. Does understanding the biology behind sex and gender identity make self-acceptance easier or harder when you are transitioning?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, so, on the one hand, you know how it is, like understanding something doesn't necessarily mean that you feel 100% different about it. So, for example, you're going on HRT is a pharmacologic exercise, all right? And so I knew exactly what these drugs were doing and what the time course was and how they were working, et cetera. And, I think it affects how you think about them a little bit, but in the final analysis, the profound impact that they have is an emotional one. And so you sort of hold these two ways of looking at the world and at your transition at the same time. So yeah, I think I found it to be helpful and valuable and enriching to be able to think about my transition from a scientific and technical perspective as well. And it's an entree to talk about it with certain people that also like to think of it in those terms. But it's not just that. It's more than that.
Okay, Tom Donovan with Timbridge.
Hi there, Jennifer. Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you'd heard from other trans people in the industry reaching out with any messages of support or questions or stories of their own.
So there have been a few people who have reached out on LinkedIn to be LinkedIn, but they haven't gone beyond that. And I didn't necessarily want to, nudge. But also, we're approaching fairly extreme Poisson statistics here, right? I mean, I only know of one other trans woman in a leadership biotech position. I'm sure I'm wrong about that, but I only know of one, and that's Martine Rothblatt.
Yep.
And so we haven't met. I'm sure we could have a lovely conversation. So I would love to have those conversations, but I think that the number of this is now getting back to Edie's question about the science versus how you feel about things. So according to the New England Journal of Medicine, the number of people who self-identify as trans is about 0.7%. And then you have to take that and say, well, how many of those are out and how many of those have transitioned? And it gets to be pretty de minimis. So we're pretty rare creatures. But if you know anyone, please give them my contact info. I'm happy to chat.
Well, I was just thinking that even if you haven't heard from people, I've no doubt, or many people, I've no doubt that you being so open with your story has done really amazing things for people you haven't met yet.
I hope so. It's been interesting to be not just transitioning, but transitioning on such a large stage, and I certainly hope that it creates some opportunities for people, both emotional and personal opportunities as well as professional opportunities.
For sure.
Thank you, Tom. We also have another question for Jennifer. As a company leader, how do you encourage diversity and inclusion in your professional culture and workplace?
It's interesting. It turns out that when you take the HRT, it doesn't automatically provide you with a voice for how to address these issues.
Explain.
Well, I mean, you spend your whole life as a WASP, a white male Protestant person, and you just don't cultivate the vocabulary about how to think about these issues and advocate for them as much as you should. No one's demanding that of you, at least not till recently. And so it's taken me have a few experiences of my own to really understand, wow, okay, that's what that's about. And it's with that I find myself more able to talk about not just LGBTQ people, but women as well, as a larger category that's underserved from a career perspective, and begin to understand what those issues are, and to kind of find situations where we can nudge the organization here or nudge the organization there to become, you know, what is it, a more perfect nation. And so I'm still looking for the ways to sort of engage there. I've taken some opportunities, but I still think I have a lot of growing to do.
Okay, Gabriella Hall has a question. Gabriella, if you can open up your video and microphone.
There we go.
I see
Sorry, I had it. I had it covered.
There you are.
So the question that I have is, what was your strategy for using your pronouns in a work environment?
Well, okay. Keep in mind that those pronouns are all third-person pronouns, so I never have to use them. And let me make a confession, and that is that I fancied myself as being breezily indifferent to whether or not people really got it right, and I was, what's the word, wrong. It turned out to matter to me actually quite a bit. And, you know, and I haven't gotten the strategy yet. I realize that. Just give me a second. You know, I think there's a concern that what you're doing is you're exporting the work of your gender identity to all the people around you. And
Yeah.
on the other hand, everyone around you genders everybody, right? So what you're asking them to do is look, you're gendering everybody because you're using a pronoun with everybody. All I'm asking you to do is gender me correctly, right? Mm-hmm. So that sort of was my process of thinking about how to sort of place myself in the group and think in those ways. Mm-hmm. So, and then I guess the second level of this is that it isn't just the pronouns. It turns out that you discover there are hundreds of ways in the course of using the English language in which people gender you. It's not just those three pronouns.
Yeah.
And you sort of have to decide how much of that you're going to take on in any one day. And everyone around you will think you're taking on a lot of it, and you will realize you're only taking on a small piece of it.
Yeah.
So now, to answer your question, you know, I've made it fairly simple for people in the sense that, you know, I have not chosen either they or theirs because for me, that's not the right answer. But I think that's a particularly challenging thing for a lot of people. I'm very binary in my thinking. I went from he and him to she and her. And so it was just a matter of requesting that happen. And, you know, not only with the change of name, but also the change of the pronouns. And the truth is, people have tried really, really hard, and they have done a wonderful job. You still encounter errors, but it's really, people have really tried very hard. I really very much appreciate it. So it's been interesting. Does that get anywhere close to the answer you were hoping for? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, trying to balance, you know, having like a conflict-free work environment with being your full self, you know, it's a hard thing to juggle.
Yeah, I live that every day. And, you know, my experience of it is that I just need to, you have to choose your battles. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I can't go there in every situation with every person to correct every single occasion because at some point it becomes corrosive, right? So you want to find, I think, opportunities to help people understand where you're coming from. And I find, what I find is kind of interesting, particularly in like a meeting, is that if person A makes an error, I don't have to say anything because person B will jump all over person A. And so it's like, wow, okay, thanks, I think.
Thank you for that question, Gabriella. We have Aaliyah that has a question for you too.
Sorry. Hello, I'm unmuted now. My name is Aaliyah Weinstein. I work at Adgene. And I have a question. I'm curious how coming out in the workplace impacted your involvement with DEI initiatives. Were you involved with them before you transitioned, and how did that maybe change after you did?
So I was not involved, in any clear-cut functional way before transitioning. And I will be quite candid with you. It was only a few months ago that I was schooled as to what D&I stood for. And I recently still had to look up SOGI. So I'm still actually learning the language. But now, I sort of find myself in a position where I'm sort of visibly sort of an obvious candidate for roles in that regard. And I would say that my relationship to those opportunities is somewhat mixed. And in other words, I'm quite interested, and yet what I don't want to do is to sashay into the room talking. I think there's a lot of listening that needs to happen. I would say that listening wasn't my forte. Maybe that's the best way to describe the transition as it pertains to this. Listening really wasn't my forte, and I think I'm a little better at it now. So I'm really just trying to find out where I should make my contribution.
Thank you. No, it's really helpful. I've been talking to some people who have different perspectives on how much of your identity is important to kind of have public as you're involved in these initiatives. So it's helpful to hear different perspectives on that. Thank you.
Sure.
We are coming up at the top of the hour, and I wanted to check and see if anyone else may have some questions. Oh, we do have one more question. I'm sorry, I didn't see it in the queue. So if you have time for one more question, how has your approach to managing change since your transition?
Wow. Yeah, change has been like pretty big recently. Some of the changes that everyone else has experienced, like, the stay at home because of the pandemic, the upheaval in race relations in the US. These are all big changes that I think affect me as much as they affect anyone else. Plus, but in my personal changes, there have been changes in my job, in my company. There have been changes in and as the whole business, what you find is that in changing genders, it's going to be a large and pervasive change. But what I can say is you have no idea. If you're paying any attention whatsoever, you realize it touches every little single tiny spot. And I have to say, I don't know that I've been especially good at managing change. I mean, some of the changes can be mundane and you can cope with by being deliberate and intent on what you're doing and organized. And some of it you just sort of have to let wash over you. And one thing there's one sort of arc of change that I'm happy to share here that you might find amusing, and that is that you spend your whole life being different and being sort of alienated from your gender, right? And then you arrive, and the big change is that suddenly that alienation is gone. And you have this moment where you sort of realize, wow, this is what normal people must feel like. And then you realize in terms of how you relate to people, say how you relate to women, I think there's an intriguing, I'm going to sort of put into the mouth of a group of women sort of a perspective. Look, darling, love you. Welcome to the club. Great change. What else you got? Because 170 million women in the US wake up every single day and have to go out there and change the world. And I think there's a sense in which, for me, the change is to be part of that conversation. And so it's, in some ways, it's giving up some of what made you different and unique. And I think that's a maturing process that's good for me.
Well, we can all speak to how we have to have those tough conversations, because it's always good things that come out on the other side of a tough conversation. It's just having to get through the tough conversations to get to that side. And so we're going to bring everything to a close due to time. And if you have any questions for either me, Bob, Jennifer, Zach, or each other, please open up and see who else is on here, because I do encourage networking with each other, and we can hold a few minute talk back at the end if anyone else is interested for a few minutes. And to wrap things up, I just like to say it's clear that no group will advance and realize true equity without the partnership of others. And I do hope that Makeshift Happen conversations will encourage dialogue focused on how people from different perspectives can be better allies, build broad coalitions, and advocate for justice for all communities and individuals. For members of all historically marginalized and excluded groups to be safe from victimization, achieve health, realize their full potential, and contribute to society, we must be allies with each other and work together to advance equity, inclusion, and belonging for all people. Our voices collectively can go further and have more impact when we work together. I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending and for participating, and again, for being an ally and being an advocate. I also like to thank PTC for powering Makeshift Happen for the month of June. We love your support and we depend on your support. So thank you for being there for us and for everyone in the community. I would also like to announce that be on the lookout for an expanding equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative that MassBio is about to launch. It's coming out this week. We're also going to launch our 2.0 open letter, CEO pledge. More information to be coming out about that. I also would like to make sure that you are aware of our 3rd annual Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion MassBio Conference. That is August 18th. If you are a MassBio member, it's complimentary. If you're an employer of one of the organizations, it's complimentary. And outside of that, I believe it's a minimal charge if you're not a member of MassBio, because we still want to make sure that everyone has access to the industry. And last but not least, I want to promote our State of Possible annual conference. It is jam-packed this year. Please don't let it be just because it's virtual that you cannot participate. It's a lot to learn, it's a lot going on, and we need everyone's voice and we need you to be there. And I would like anyone to send me program ideas of who we should be speaking with, what's on the forefront. I don't know everything. Bob doesn't know everything. You don't know everything. So the more we all share with each other, the more we can all learn and make this industry better. And we all do this for more patient outcomes and to get therapies to the market faster. I would like to also wish everyone a very happy and safe 4th. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you July 13th. Our featured guest on Makeshift Happen is going to be Dr. Margarita Algrell. She is the Chief Disparities Health Unit over at Mass General Hospital. And we are going to talk about health disparities and inequities and what biotech can do to move marginalized communities forward. What's our role in doing so? So thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you on July 13th. If you want to hang out for the last couple of minutes, we can have a talk back, listen to some music, celebrate Pride Month. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.